As we get closer to the NHL draft and the free agency period, there are some needs that the Hurricanes need to address this upcoming offseason. One of them being is finding a second line center. And on today's episode of Locked On Hurricanes, I'll have three guys that should be in mind that the Hurricanes could potentially target this upcoming summer.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Hours, also the co-host of the Searchcast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On a Monday edition of the podcast, we're going to talk about three potential options for the Hurricanes to look at as a second-line center this summer that they could sign to the team. We're going to talk about Pius Suter, who played for the Vancouver Canucks, Mikael Granlund, who played for the San Jose Sharks and the Dallas Stars, and Ryan Donato of the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, starting off, we're going to talk about Pius Suter, and I think he, out of the three, has the most intriguing aspect of what he could bring to the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this past season with the Canucks, in 81 games, he had 25 goals and 46 points. Now, looking that throughout his career, this was arguably his best season offensively in general for his career. Of course, that's playing over, just his fifth season. Set a career high in goals with 25, did tie his career high in assists in 21 that he had back in the 21-22 season with the Red Wings, but then, of course, 46 points, the most ever. Now, in terms of time on ice, it was the most he had in a season. Over 1,400 minutes of ice time for the Canucks, which towards the later end of the season saw him playing top line minutes with Niles Höglander and Connor Garland, with Elias Pettersson being injured and a lot of other stuff going on. So Suter got a lot of top 6 minutes with the Canucks, first line towards the end, a lot of second line as well. And this is a really intriguing part of why I think that Suter could be one of those guys to go get. He is only 29 years old. He will be unrestricted free agent this summer. And yes, he is 5 years older than Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who's the current 2C of the Hurricanes. But if you look at Suter, his game has him featured on even strength, a little bit of the power play, but he also had some penalty kill time as well, where he did have 2 power play goals and also had a shorthanded goal this year for the Canucks. The thing, too, is he's coming off a season with a 2-year contract where he was only making $1.6 million per season. On top of that, the Swiss forward, by AFP Analytics, they're a great group of guys to follow, a lot of great contract projections that they've been doing every year. They are thinking he's projected to get a 4-year, $19.932 million contract, which the annual average value, or the AAV, comes out to $4.983 million, which would only take up 5.22% of the cap. It's definitely a jump going from 1.6 to 4.9. But you look at what he can kind of bring to the Carolina Hurricanes. He's got some top 6 minutes with the Canucks. He, like I said, still on the right side of 30. You give him a 4-year deal that takes him to 33 years old. You give him a 5-year that's still relatively good as well. It's 34. So you could lock up a center who had a career with the Canucks, who's actually been good with them overall, and I think has taken that next step. His faceoff percentage is okay, not the greatest, but he usually gets about 49%, which is what the Hurricanes are known for. But if you get him on a team like Carolina, where you have Ryan Brind'Amour, who's won the Selke, Jordan Staal is one of those guys who always wins faceoffs, I think Suter would be in a good spot to where you would have Aho, Suter, Staal, and Jankowski as your 1 through 4 for the center core. And like I said, he does add some intangibles of the 5-on-5. Definitely put him on the second power play, and you can throw him on a PK unit, which gives the Hurricanes more of a depth options, more variety of guys to where you're not relying on two sets of groups like, Aho, Jarvis, and then like Stahl and Martinook. Now you can go to where it could be like a Jankowski, Suter, or those combination guys with maybe like a William Carrier, and then the normal cast of characters of the Jordans and Seth, Jarvis and Aho. So adding Suter would give Tim Gleason a little bit more of a options to go to certain different guys. And for Rod, now you're adding a guy who had a boost in his career with Rick Tocchet as head coach, and now he's moving on to Philadelphia. But if you're looking at a guy who could potentially take that next step in terms of, getting coached by Toc, and then now moving up, and now you're going to go and get Rod Brind'Amour as your head coach, not a bad option for a guy who's 29 years old, who just had a 46-point season, and the fact you could also get him under $5 million per year, which still gives you a lot of flexibility if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, and especially for a guy who averaged over 17 minutes of ice time through the season. Usually Suter got 14 minutes here, maybe 15 minutes here. He got over 17 minutes of ice time, and you saw the production he's had. And that's even going back to the Dallas, to Detroit and Chicago, where he didn't really get a lot of minutes. Vancouver gave him the ice time, and he was rewarded with a lot of good aspects to his game. So you're still talking about a guy who's, on the right side of 30, still someone in his prime years, who had a career year that you can just bring in at 4.9 or even $5.1 million. Could be 3 years, could be 4, could be 5. It all really depends on where you want to go with this. But you're going to get him in a good spot to where you have a guy with a good skill set who can play a two-way game, who can be used on the penalty kill, could be used on the power play, giving you a lot of roster flexibility in terms of where you can put him in the lineup, and also to special teams, and giving you more room in terms of contracts to where you don't have to go and trade the farm or go and use a lot of your cap on a second line center. You can go and give a guy like that money to where it's only a little bit more than what you're giving Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Jesperi Kotkaniemi is making 4.82. That's not that much of a jump if you go to a Pius Suter at 4.9 or 5 or $5.1 million. That's only an extra couple $100,000, give or take. And yeah, you're getting a guy who's 5 years older, but you're seeing a trajectory with Suter that could really benefit the Hurricanes. So would he be a good option for them as a 2C? I would think so. I think he has an excellent ability to continue to progress in his career in terms of what he's done in terms of just his overall game, his play style that works. He's a two-way center that could really benefit could help benefit him and the Hurricanes on going from a team like Vancouver, who may or may not make the playoffs next year with a lot of uncertainties that are going on with that team, to now you're going to a contender who makes the playoffs every year, who just got to an Eastern Conference final, and now you could potentially be the 2C on a team that's, like I said, you're buying Sebastian Aho, and you might have Taylor Hall, Jackson Blake, or a Logan Stankoven on your other wing. All things considered, that's not bad if you're Pius Suter and if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, to where you have a good set of, now you can look at a guy who has played bona fide top 6 minutes on the second line and even the first line, and played with, Höglander, and also played with Connor Garland as well. So you're looking at a guy like Suter who could fit into this lineup that gives you a little bit more of a dynamic, more of a score and touch that you need. Like I said, especially when you just had a career on a Vancouver Canucks team that had a lot of aspirations but fell short of making the playoffs. You put him on a team like Carolina, where they're consistently in the playoffs, and guys around him who can set up assists, score goals, and stuff like that. I would not be surprised if you see a 50-point season out of Pius Suter, and that's something you would gladly take for the Carolina Hurricanes. Being able to pay a second-line center $4.9 to $5.1 million and getting 50-plus points out of them. That's something that could be very huge for the Hurricanes, and like I said, and that puts Suter on a contender for 3 to 5 seasons. That is a great spot to be in if you're both sides. So if there's someone to potentially look at, could be Pius Suter. Another guy that the Hurricanes can look at, well, it's Mikael Granlund. Had a solid year with the Sharks and the Stars. And a good thing, too, is he's also a Finn. And as you always know, Finns always do get more wins. So we'll stick around, and we'll talk about Mikael Granlund here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You're going to track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talked about Pius Suter in segment 1, but now let's talk about Mikael Granlund. Now, Granlund obviously finished forward, and for the Hurricanes, they do love their Finns, and they always say Finns do get more wins. And he was part of a line with the Dallas Stars that also had Roope Hintz as their center, along with Mikko Rantanen, which Hurricanes fans all well know about him. But all Finnish line, can't go wrong with that. Now, the thing with Mikael Granlund, he was a winger for the Stars, but he's also viewed as a center. And with splitting his time between the Sharks and the Dallas Stars this past season, he did have 22 goals and 66 points. Now, with the Sharks in 52 games, 15 goals, 45 points for a 0.87 points per game average. With the Stars, 7 goals, 21 points in 31 games with a 0.68 points per game. Now, with him, unlike Suter, who is 29, Mikael Granlund is 33. So this is where it's going to get very interesting of how you want to play this out. He did just finish a 4-year contract that was $20 million, with it being a $5 million cap hit. He's a left-shooting center. He is 5'10", compared to Pius Suter, who's 6 foot. But the thing is, Mikael Granlund is a guy who is well known for scoring goals and someone who can put up some numbers every season. Now, this is the first time he had 60-point seasons back-to-back years. Of course, 23-24, we had 60 last year with the Sharks, where he had 48 assists and 12 points. The last time he had back-to-back 60-point seasons, you have to go back to 16-17, 17-18 with the Minnesota Wild, where he had 69 and then 67. Then he had some mixes of like 49 here, 30 here, of course, with like shortened seasons, stuff like that. He did have 64 points with the Nashville Predators back at 21-22. So you do see that there is a trend being on the right side for Mikael Granlund, of course. Played a few games with Pittsburgh in 22-23 as well, on top of being with Nashville. 5 points, though, so there is some back and forth in terms of how his total points went. But overall, back-to-back 60-point seasons, can't go wrong with that. Now, like I said, he has 33, going to be unrestricted free agent. He did make $5 million. AFP Analytics is looking at a potential projected contract of only 2 years at $9.951 million, which the AAV comes out to 4.975 or 5.21% of the cap hit. Now, the thing is, that's pretty much similar to what Pius Suter's looking at. Of course, add a little bit more years, add a little bit more of the total money. The percentage is pretty much the same. You're talking like 5 points, 2.2 for Suter, 5.21 for Granlund. So there's really not much difference in terms of the contract. You can basically almost give the same contract to either one of those guys. The only difference is, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, what are you looking at in terms of control? Are you looking at a situation where do you give a 33-year-old Granlund who did have back-to-back 60-point seasons a 4.9 to 5.1, $5.2 million contract? Or do you want to give something like that to a Suter who is 4 years younger and did have a career season and on the right side of 30? Now, there's nothing wrong with being 33 because, I mean, if you're putting up 60 points as a 33-year-old after your 13th season in the NHL, that's pretty impressive. It's just for the Hurricanes, do you want a stopgap in Granlund, or do you think that there is a more of an investment in terms of riding a career off of Suter and seeing where that goes, where you give him some more time to accumulate to the system of the Hurricanes and give him more years with the team? Or like I said, or do you go with the short-term option of Granlund and squeeze out whatever is possibly left in the tank for him? Honestly, and not another bad option as a 2C for the Carolina Hurricanes, because then you're going to have two Finns back-to-back in Aho and Granlund. Now, with these two guys, you just Barry Kotkaniemi throw him on the wing. Who really knows? And if he's not here, you still have another Finn coming in, and it's Granlund. And you're still going to have Aho, Granlund with Stahl and Jankowski as your center core. Not a lot of penalty kill time for Granlund, mostly some power play minutes, sprinkled in there. But if you're Carolina, you really can't go wrong with either option. It's just more of, can the play style, the playing style, what's a better fit? What's the roster flexibility of, roles that you can give these guys? Special teams, top six, stuff like that. Contract's pretty much the same. It's almost a wash when you really look at the hindsight of it, because you're looking at 4.975 to 4.952, however you want to look at that. Cap hit's basically the same in the 5.2 range. It's just, are you giving a guy 4 years of 4.9 to 5.1, or are you giving it 2 years around that same price range? So it just depends on the play style, terms of contract length, stuff like that. Are you trying to get the best out of whatever's left out of Granlund, or are you looking at, hey, this guy just had a career in Suter, can we ride this out, another 4 or 5 seasons and go from there? Either way, it's not a bad option. Like I said, Mikael Granlund, he's, was a 9th overall draft pick by the Minnesota Wild, back in 2010. Like I said, just finished a 4-year, $5 million AAV. You could see him get 4.9 to 5.1, but there's also a possibility that you could look at a contract that be going to $5.5 or $6 million. It's a possibility, because if this is going to be Granlund's possible last contract, he might want to go out and get some money with it. It all really just depends on what you want to go do in terms of that aspect. Now, his AHL projection is a second line forward, of course. A lot of great stats in terms of power play, where he's ranked in the 90th percentile, penalty kill 79. It's an okay stat to be in if you're Mikael Granlund. So it's just where, like I said, for the Hurricanes, is just, where is your priorities of your second line center? Is it, hey, this is a stopgap for someone else to potentially come in later down the road, maybe looking towards the 26 offseason, where you can maybe get another bona fide second line center that could replace Granlund? If you don't think that, that this is a long-term option, maybe there's a free agent in 2026 that maybe is a better option for you and you're trying to do a quick stopgap. Or do you believe that you think, okay, Pius Suter could potentially be that guy, let's go after him and have our second line center locked up for the next 4 or 5 seasons, and we don't have to worry about going through this whole process again next summer? So it's just a lot of what the Hurricanes are going to do. Like I said, Granlund could be a great option. Suter could be a great option. Both these guys left-handed shots. Both these guys are projected from AFP Analytics to get the same type of money. Cap hit's still pretty much the same. It's just, what's the priority for the Hurricanes? Is it short-term or a long-term option for 2C? And for me, if you're looking for something that's going to be, I would rather go for the long-lasting option rather than stop gapping every so often, because the Hurricanes haven't really had a bona fide 2C since Vincent Trocheck when he left in 2022, and nothing against KK or whoever else has been going on who's been thrown in that 2C spot. But if you're looking for someone who's going to be ready to go now, it's Suter or it could be Granlund. But also there is a third option, and it's possibly Ryan Donato. So stick around and we'll talk about why it could be him here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we talked about Pius Suter in segment 1, talked about Mikael Granlund in segment 2, but there's a potential third option here for the Carolina Hurricanes if they're looking for that next second line center. This one might be a little bit of a stretch just because of he's played mostly wing for the Chicago Blackhawks, but he did play some center as well. Could you consider him top 6? Maybe. He did play some top 6 minutes with the Hawks. Did also see some bottom 6 as well, a lot of top 9. This could be a possible stretch option for 2C if the Hurricanes want to go this route. It's just an option to have if they think that maybe they can't get Suter or maybe they can't get Granlund. There is the potential option in Ryan Donato. Now, the thing with Donato is he's coming off a contract where it was 2 years at $4 million, which was a cap of $2 million. Just like Suter, he is 29, another left shot, 6 foot. So you're talking about that 5'10", 6 foot range in terms of Suter, Donato, and Granlund. Now, for Donato, former 56 overall pick back in 2014, he had 62 points in 80 games with the Hawks, which was the .78 points per game average, 31 goals, and 31 assists. Here's the kicker, though. This was his, by far, greatest season ever on a very struggling Blackhawks team. Like I said, career high in goals, assists, and total points. Did have 41 penalty minutes, but the thing too is this, in total terms of time on ice, first time he's ever hit 1,000 minutes. Other than that, you're talking very low to mid 900s, 868 here and there, but a lot of like 30-point seasons, 27, 31. So not a lot for the Boston Bruins. Was maybe decent-ish with the Wild. Had a season with the Sharks. Couple years with the Kraken. Had 31 and 27 points in the first couple years with them. His first season with the Blackhawks, 30 points in 78 games. Like I said, this past one was basically a breakout year for Donato. And as the Hurricanes know, Ryan Donato did pretty much kill them in a couple of games they faced the Hawks this season. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Like I said, 29. AFP Analytics has him projected at a 3-year contract of $12.62 million, which comes out with an AAV of 4.206 or 4.41 of projected cap. Now, if you ask me, if you're looking at a guy who had a career season, I think 4.2 is a little low. I could see this turning into a 5 to 5.5. Possibly 6. That is a huge jump for a guy who just had a career season and is 29. The question is, like I said, he did play a lot of winger for the Hawks. Not a lot of center time. Had a little bit, but not a lot. Could you look at him as a bona fide 2C? Possibly. But like I said, a lot of it was top 9 for the most part, and a lot of it was on the wing, not a center. So like I said, this is an option for the Hurricanes. It's just not probably one of the top options, like I said, with a Suter or a Granlund or let's say a Matt Duchene, if that's a road they want to go down as well, where Matt Duchene's 34, did have a better production point-wise than both Granlund and Suter. But if you're looking at someone who could give a little bit of roster flexibility for the Hurricanes, it could be Donato. 4.2, I think, is a little low. Like I said, you could be looking at more of like a 5.5 range, which still isn't bad, all things considered, for a possible second line center. It's just, does his game with how he was with the Hawks on a very struggling Hawks team, did getting the points that he did at 62. What's that look like for the Hurricanes? And for a guy who didn't really play a lot of center, that's where the main question is. Where you look at Suter, who did play a lot of center for the Canucks. Granlund did split some time between center and wing for the Stars, but had a productive season overall at 66 points. I think Donato would be a good option, another two-way guy. Could you see him on the penalty kill? Maybe. I could definitely see him on the power play more than anything else, possibly second-line power play. He could see some time on the PK as well. It's just one of those things where you see a guy who's mainly been a high 20s, low 30s point guy to have a 62-point season out of nowhere like that. That's huge. I mean, that's great to have. It's just my, not reluctance, but just my reservations of, is this a guy that you want to go give a 4.2 or a $5.5 million contract to, when this is, of course, it was his best season by far, but is this a one-off season where, like I said, you got a guy who had, before that, his most points were 31 back with the Kraken in 21-22. His first season of the Hawks was 30. Those are his only 30-point seasons outside of this past season. Yes, he did get a lot more ice time, which is good. You definitely want to see that. You want to see a guy who can, get a bigger role, get a lot more minutes and produce, which he did. So maybe this is just a case of he finally got his shot, took advantage, and he kind of surprised a lot of people. But also could just be one of those random seasons where a guy has a hot year, and then does he fall back to earth? That's the main question, and I can see where that could be a concern for the Hurricanes. But at some point, too, you also got to take a shot on, like, hey, this guy had a really good season. Could we capitalize on the momentum and go from there? It's just, is that an avenue the Hurricanes want to go down? Because, like I said, if you look at AFP Analytics, he's only projected for a 3-year deal at 4.206 per season. Like I said, that could be a little low for some teams. I could see someone going to 5. Now, would it be for 3 years? I could see Donato going for 4 or 5 because he's only 29. A 3-year deal only puts him at 32. Then he has to look for another contract. I could see a team giving him a 4 or 5 year deal, maybe closer to 5, because that would put him at 34. So a possible 5x5. Who really knows? Because he just did a 2x4. 2 years, $4 million, which was a $2 million AAV. So you can definitely see a jump there. I would say out of the 3 possible options for the Hurricanes, I see Donato being more of a stretch option as a potential 2C. It's just out of the 3 guys, I would say probably Granlund or Suter could be the way to go if you're Carolina, with me kind of leaning more towards Suter just because of age and the fact you could get more range out of a contract. But him or Granlund could be great options as well. Like I said, Donato could be an option too. It's just you have to, in the back of your mind, think, was this a one-off season where he just got hot in a random year and it could be an anomaly, and does he go back to earth of being a 30-point guy again? And we're talking low 30s, like 30, 31. So we'll see. It's an option, but I mean, I think out of the 3 guys, you really can't go wrong with either one of them. But I would say probably I'd say Suter, Granlund might be the better picks overall in terms of the Canes want to go for a 2C. But I guess we'll see as we get closer towards the free agency and re-sign phase and see what the Hurricanes do from there, because who knows? Are they looking for a 2C? Maybe, but I think with what they need to lean on for the playoffs, they need scoring and they need guys who could be that bona fide guy to slide in behind Aho. I think that's going to be a need the Hurricanes need to figure out this offseason. So for me, all 3 could be options, but I would look at more of Suter and Granlund. But let me know, if you're on YouTube, let me know what you think in the comments. Would you go for either one of these guys, or is there someone else in mind that I didn't really talk about in this episode? We'll do more free agency stuff as we get closer towards all of that come July 1st, but this is just some potential options for a 2C if the Hurricanes do go down that route. So Suter, Granlund, Donato, those are guys I'm thinking could be potential on the radar. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But guys, this will be Monday edition of Locked On. Thank you for making it today. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where I do have link trees in my bios. So you can find all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe to the show. Hit the bell notifications so you don't miss an episode. Leave a thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Monday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.